little bit about Michigan. I won't get into a lot of detail, but I will say that passenger rail is something that's very important to us in Michigan. Freight rail is something that's very important to us in Michigan. We are very supportive of Operation Lifesaver and all the safety aspects that brings to railroading and our crossing safety throughout Michigan. And trades and workforce are obviously very important to us in Michigan as well.
I do think that we are at a really important crossroads for rail transportation, both on the freight and passenger side, moving forward. You know, we're coming into the last year of spending for what was a generational investment in infrastructure in this country that affects not only passenger infrastructure, but also freight. A huge amount of investments in terms of linking more of our freight infrastructure from ports to rail and rail to trucks, as well as expanding new routes for passenger service. The Borealis turned out to be a great success up in Minnesota and Chicago as an example of when you build it, people will come. They're adding more frequencies to that route. I think there's a real demand for passenger rail. Unfortunately, that demand has not been met by the priority and the funding that comes with government making it a public service that should be served for its people. And for the first time in my career, we actually had that. The reason I say it's a really big turning point is because we can make a one-time big investment, but if that is not continued or built upon, then that will be a one-time investment that people forget about and don't see what the ultimate promise can be in terms of growing our passenger rail network in this country and growing the jobs, the good jobs that come with that.
Obviously, as we're looking ahead to this year, there is a lot of transition happening right now within the agencies and within Congress. As you said, there's a lot of confusion of things coming one day and leaving the next. And as things settle, we're really looking towards, in the last panel, they were talking about the surface transportation reauthorization. We think that is going to be obviously the big push here in DC in the transportation world over the next couple of years. And we have some real priorities that we have sort of set out of what we think that legislation should look like. Some of them are sort of what you would anticipate, really restoring a user-based system for the Highway Trust Fund, making sure that cost allocation studies are finished and that we have a true system in place that's self-sustaining, that is funding the need of our highway system. We also are wanting to make sure that the grant programs that have been, the Class 1 railroads don't receive direct federal funding, but we have worked really closely with our public partners on many of these grant programs since IIJA was passed. The Railroad Crossing Elimination Program, which, I was here 2 or 3 years ago, and we were so worried it was going to be undersubscribed that no one was going to apply for it. And it has been oversubscribed dramatically every single time. And we're thrilled to see so much bipartisan support for continuing that program, for seeing the effectiveness of it. The Section 130 program, we can't forget that as well. And then also some of the other big multimodal grant programs, mega, infra, the rural grant programs, obviously Chrissy, which I'm sure Chuck will talk more about, making sure that those programs are funded, that they are running efficiently, and that the money is getting out the door. Getting rail into a lot of those programs was a huge lift over several years, and we want to make sure that that continues, and that these projects that have already been funded are completed and can really start changing the flow of freight traffic in a lot of these states and communities.
The basics of short lines and what we try to do in the states, we're the first and last mile of the freight rail system. Some people would call us maybe like the retail arm of the freight rail business. We are very, very focused on excellent service to our customers. And typically there's only a few customers on a given short line, so we really pride ourselves on the bend over backwards, customized, flexible, friendly approach to freight railroading. And we do that because we're obsessed with growth. And I know this has been talked about all afternoon, but we are trying to help get as much freight onto the freight rail system as possible, which hopefully you all find benefit from them, helping take trucks off of the highways and get, and more freight on the rail system is I think it's widely agreed, like, that's a good deal for everyone. That's good for economic development. That's certainly good for the small towns and rural communities we serve. It's also good for the environment. It's good for less wear and tear on the highway, which means it's good for the taxpayer. And it's good for safety. Freight rail safety is not perfect. We're obviously all painfully aware of East Palestine, and then frankly, anytime there's a rail accident, it's high profile. But we do think it's important to keep the bigger picture in mind. Freight rail is safe, it is getting safer, and it is far, far, far safer than the competition, right? Depending on how you're measuring what moves by freight rail versus truck, it's 3 to 20 times safer than trucking, depending on whether you're measuring equipment damage or number of accidents or fatality. There's a lot of different kind of stats, but it is a lot safer. So I do think there's a huge public policy benefit to having freight move on the rail network as opposed to the highway network whenever possible.
So if you are starting new service, if you are increasing your speeds or increasing your frequencies, you may want to partner with Operation Lifesaver, which is a free resource to you, to educate your communities about the changes that are going to happen. It can make a big difference in terms of the safety of your communities. We've got a great example, 2 great examples, one with a geofencing project that gave people alerts with Louisville and Indiana Railroad when they raised their track speed from 25 to 40, that helped prevent a number of far more serious collisions that could have happened at grade crossings and helped prevent trespassers from being struck by even faster and more lethal trains. So we partner with the federal government, with states, with local governments. The structure of Operation Lifesaver varies greatly from state to state. We have some state programs that are actually housed in state DOTs, and some that are funded through the National Safety Council, but they all have one thing in common. That is, the resources to you are free. They're all available on our website if you want to download them to take a look at them. If you want to set up programs with our volunteers will go out, talk to communities, talk to, fire chiefs, bus drivers, whomever it is that you want to target to increase their safety and knowledge around railroad crossings. We have videos, we have PSAs, and again, this is all free. So when you're building out your rail programs, it would be great if you would consider building in rail safety education into everything you do.
So we are a trade association comprising of rail operators, rail labor unions, consultants, contractors, and the rail industry at large to advance the goal of promoting competition for the intercity rail market. We see this as a fundamental goal for expanding the network that we have now, on top of expanding all these new projects that are coming online as well. Some of the benefits of competition, and I'll kind of hit this throughout the presentation as well. We believe it increases efficiency, decreases costs, increases transparency, and it really lets the state DOTs here tailor your own service to your own operation. So we really have seen a lot of success working through the commuter market, where most of our operators are, you'd find them. So we think that's pretty important. So we're working a lot with state DOTs, rail authorities, the Federal Railroad Administration, host railroads, and then the industry at large as well.
The passenger rail program is always kind of fighting for its life. And one of the reasons that that's true is that it's not serving enough people. This map would change that. And it's not serving enough people, and yet the people that it does serve really rely on it. It's vital, it's crucial. And Amtrak is setting ridership records again, post-pandemic. And so when you look in that map and you see some of the rural communities, recognize that most of those folks, most of those places are generating 1.5 times, 2 times, 2.5 times their population in trips. So when we talk about, all the traffic's on the Northeast Corridor, well, in absolute numbers, that's true. But when you look at the way that communities rely on rail in these smaller communities, it'll blow your mind. 2.5 times the population. This is the only public transportation in a lot of places in the United States, and that's why it's so vital. So we really think that the IIJA set the stage, created a blueprint for the transformative investments that our country has been crying out for half a century.